Okay. All right. Everything coming through okay, Paul? All right. Well, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for coming. I know we have a little bit smaller group than we had for Michael's, but again, I think this is the best of the best. So again, thank you for coming today. Um, Thank you to Steve. I know hopefully you can hear me, Steve, online. Thank you very much for recommending that I speak today. I'm humbled, but also I hope that I can bring some value to everybody here today, but also anybody that watches this video in the future. I'm relatively new to the ham hobby as well as CW. And today about the best thing I can bring to you is just a little snippet of the journey I've been on. And hopefully, again, I can inspire you. Again, if you were once a CW operator, to take it up again. Hopefully, I remember to thank you along the way, because again, several of you here have talked to me a lot about your CW contacts, and those have kept me fueled and going over time. But again, if you've never used CW before, hopefully I get you interested, and maybe you'll give it a serious chance going forward. So again, this is kind of a hybrid talk. Simply because my CW journey as well as my ham journey are intertwined. I'm approaching, I think I'm at about 7 months now. And please know that before this, I knew very, very little about this hobby, very little about CW. I mean, I started from scratch. So again, I think I've seen, again, an HF transceiver once, maybe about 20 years ago. I didn't know anything about, again, the power equation, Ohm's law, again, just about, how this hobby functioned. I'd used a VHF marine radio years ago, maybe once or twice speaking into it, again, that channelized system, but I really didn't understand how it was connected to the ham hobby as a whole. Was that ham? I didn't know. I didn't understand anything about the licensing that was involved. So please know that, again, this presentation is coming from a point of knowing nothing. So if nothing else, maybe it'll help you remember what it was like to be new in the hobby. And hopefully for those that are looking to become hams, this presentation offers something as well, because again, everything was brand new, and you're going to see some concepts in here that, again, old hat for you, but again, they're still fresh in my memory as being complicated new things that I had to figure out myself. And I'm going to try and explain them in a way and again, cut through, again, all of the resources that are available online right now, just to kind of, give you the facts about what's important and what's not, just getting online. So let's begin. Before I get started, I just want to give you a little background about me. So again, I'm from Louisiana. Again, spent a lot of time in Texas. There's just so much to see and do here in Texas over time. But again, born and raised in South Louisiana, just again, hunting, fishing, gardening in South Louisiana. Again, from my perspective, we're in a Goldilocks place out here. Just the right amount of rainfall. Again, the mosquito pressure is low. So again, been loving my time here. So I moved in 2019 for my job. I'm an agronomist by training, and again, I work for USDA. Again, right now I'm kind of specializing in modeling wind and water erosion for USDA, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. But again, just know I'm still really like a newcomer to this area and still trying to explore everything Texas has to offer. I've been married over 30 years. I've got a son and a daughter that, again, a couple of years ago left the house. So again, that was quite a shock. And again, that kind of feeds into my story. And also, please know that throughout, again, all of my son's time, again, being a young man, all the way to becoming a man and leaving high school, I was involved in his Cub Scouting journey as a scout leader, but also a scout committee leader all the way through the time he graduated from high school. So just know that, again, I love scouting. I love being in the outdoors, and I love everything that program brings to me. But just know that that was one of the things I did as a hobby. Again, just like that. And again, following my daughter around with all the sports that she played, that was me. That was my personality. I lived for my children. And once they left, all of a sudden, oh my goodness, like, what do I do? Like, I have time to do the things that I want to do now. And again, it was that life reassessment that brought me to CW. And again, I was first made aware of Morse code as me being a Cub Scout, looking at the Cub Scouting handbook. Again, I was like, well, this is really neat. And over time, periodically, I would see Morse code use as you looked at historical, again, military history and looks in particular, again, naval history at how it was used. It's also very interesting to see how it was used kind of in the settling of the United States and how we communicated with each other before the other methods were available. I'm not going to get into a history of Morse code. Please know that Sam did a great job of covering the history of Morse code in a presentation, from what I understand, at the beginning of last year in 2023. So hopefully that's something, if you haven't seen it and are looking to see that presentation, maybe that's something, that, again, some of the leadership here can provide to you. But again, today I want to talk about, again, why I, pursued Ham and Morse code. So first of all, I've always had a fascination about how the world works. And pretty much every day, whenever I get home from work, just with the little time that's left for me, I would just try and figure out why things work together. Again, in my job, inherently, I'm always studying ecological, functions, the ecosystems, how they work together, but also how, again, the world works and our place in the cosmos have always fascinated me. The other thing that, brought me to Ham was, well, I thought, well, why don't I try and see if I can learn Morse code? I've learned how to study, I've got time, but how will I communicate with other people? Well, the Ham hobby was really, everything pointed to that hobby as the way to, again, improve your Morse code or CW skills and to connect to people around the world. And I was like, well, this is great. I can, connect with people. I can, learn about, again, the power equation, electronics, how computers work. I can learn about just again, the frequency spectrum, and again, all of the things that make our world work, how those fit into that. And just by pursuing maybe a certification in Ham, the Ham hobby, and it's all going to come together. I was also fascinated with, both the Ham hobby as well as the CW, portion of that hobby, because, just in thinking about what it was, these are people that were keeping alive an old way of communicating, just for the sheer love of it. And I thought, those are the kind of people that I want to be, communicate with daily. Those are the people that I want to become friends with and learn from. And that's turned out to be true. I mean, very much. Also, again, as many of you know, again, I've been suffering some hearing loss, and CW I found, is a way for me to continue to communicate using Ham, even though I lose maybe portions of, again, the normal hearing frequencies. I will continue to be able to, again, hear other portion of it just fine. And with Morse code, even though the finer points and the consonants of maybe talking, using the phone connection will be lost, again, Morse code is always going to be there for me, until the day I die. Again, being connected to the world is just, I just find that fascinating. And as you can see here, I am a new Ham. Throughout, again, from the beginning of February, I studied for my technician, and then about halfway through February, I realized, well, the general license is very similar. So again, studied for it. And of course, the month after hearing a kind of a net that was on, again, a portion of the band I couldn't normally access, I thought, wait a minute, that's just not going to sit well with me. So again, I decided to pick up my extra at the end of March. CW, just in a nutshell, it's so simple, and what you can do with, again, simple transceiver configuration is great. I'll be able to get online really quick. It's very power efficient. I knew that, again, running very low power levels, I would be able to reach out really, really far. And again, just around the world. As, again, I'll talk about in a second, there are several ways for you to use low power options, portable options, to get out of your ham shack, get out there and to, again, communicate with people in these portable setups. And again, it's just an exciting way to communicate with others and just to be ready with whatever's thrown your way. Also, there's a very supportive community within the Morse Code network. And again, a lot of that came through in YouTube videos, in websites, and so many resources that are out there that everybody wants to help you. And just know that if you're thinking about, starting into Morse code, it's overwhelming how many resources are there for you. Um, I like to chit chat, but Morse code offers you the opportunity to have extended conversations or just very quick conversations if you want to. Again, the rag chewing can be very, very quick and concise. And again, I'll talk to you a little bit about how that works. But sometimes I just want to get on for a quick conversation. I don't want an extended conversation, and Morse code allows you to do that. And as I discovered during the field day, and again, just through, my journey, you can, with just a couple of hundred hertz, you can send out a Morse code signal. And even, again, with all the traffic that came down during field day, you can fit in between other people and using the right filters. I mean, you can isolate that signal and a lot of people can occupy a small amount of space. So it's really neat in that way. So this is how I ended up here. License testing, again, very quickly doing research, I found the ARRL was kind of the advocate for the ham hobby. And by looking on their website, I found the Hurst, Amateur Radio Club testing opportunity. Like, well, okay, that's not far. Let me give it a shot. I knew no one here, and I thought, well, let's go and ride out there and give it a shot. So I prepared. So again, just like so many of you here, I just consumed these first two books for the Technician in General class. Read them cover to cover. Again, can't say that about the extra class. Again, this was quite a challenge, and I read some of it, but again, please know that for that, but with all of the testing, I relied quite a bit on HurstARC. And again, I drilled these tests, but in particular, I drilled the extra testing because much of it I just memorized, and that's okay because some of the concepts are just well beyond me. So please know that, new hams. And again, but the hamstudy.org is a fantastic platform that gives you the same questions you're going to see, and again, helps you figure out where you're weak and where you're strong. And there's a companion iPhone app. So just know that you can get all of this done both on your PC, but on your iPhone, or again, your other portable phone. Also, again, I used a software-defined radio. This is something that Michael recently talked about, just to understand what the bands consist of. Using HurstARC, it very clearly showed you, whether you were in a band or outside of a band. There's kind of a line that exists, within each of those regions. But I just listened to try and reinforce the concepts that were being taught to me on hamstudy.org and within the manuals. And I just used a simple powered loop.
You're not echoing anymore. So I don't know. Maybe I need to reboot that.
Someone online may need to be muted. Okay, thank you. So again, this is old information for many of you, but please know that I researched all kinds of equipment, just trying to figure out, how do I start? Where do I go? And the one thing I can say unequivocally, that all of the modern transceivers are fantastic. Whether you go with Kenwood or you go with ICOM, or you go with Yaesu, they're heads and shoulders above older equipment that's just maybe 15, 20 years ago. So you really can't go wrong in what you choose. And I ended up settling on an ICOM 7300 simply because there seemed to be just maybe a little bit more information out there just to help you along. But maybe that was just my perception. I've been happy, and just know that I'm still trying to figure out all of the functionality of this rig. But again, great resources online to help you figure out your equipment. As far as paddles, again, I ended up going to C.W. Morris and picking up an inexpensive, about a $40 or $50 pair of paddles with a steel base. Also, I used an MFJ power supply, and for antenna, I found this InFed half wave kit online. I thought, well, I need to up my soldering skills. Again, I've soldered very little ever in my life, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to figure these things out. So the first thing I did is, again, I just installed along my fence this in-fed half wave, and again, went through various trouble trying to get it to work. But again, I eventually was able to, again, pick up signals on my Icom 7300. I thought I was going to get, again, just a little more aggressive and maybe get above my roof. And please know that I live in an HOA, just like so many of you. And again, I strung out another in-fed halfway from the Tintinas manufacturer. Again, you can find those on eBay, over my roof. And again, it was suspended about 36 inches above my roof. And what I found is that the noise floor was just too high and it was just unusable. So I ended up, again, I've not only just maybe the roof construction, but I have a radiant barrier inside my attic. And that might have been part of the cause. So I ended up settling on just elevating it above my wooden fence in my backyard, just using fiberglass poles I bought from Tractor Supply and just using cable ties to get it up there. One thing I can't stress enough is that if you're going to be in this hobby at all, you need something, again, to analyze your antenna. I found that simply building it, to specs as closely as you can is not enough. I had very quickly, one of the solder connections inside my in-fed half wave broke, and I wouldn't have been able to figure out what was going on without this little nano VNA and being able to check my standing wave ratio, or SWR. Again, about $50, it's just an investment that if you're going to be a part of this hobby at all, you really need, especially if you plan on building, other types of antennas and want to analyze them and tune them. Now, this is the only thing I'm going to say about grounding, is that my connection to this in-fed half wave, I do have a lightning arrestor and a ground that goes to, again, my ground stake outside my house. So that was the one thing that concerned me the most, and I wanted to make sure that even a nearby lightning strike may have a chance of being, again, diverting a lot of that energy and not making it into the shack. But again, that's all I'm going to say. Again, grounding is probably a whole nother issue that would make a great talk for this club, and I'd love to hear from all of the experts in this group. Now, the connections that you see here, again, have two names to them. Again, the male ends are called PL259s, the females females SO239s. Both of them are called UHF. One's called male, one's called female. So again, that's a little hurdle I had to get over whenever I was trying to figure out how these things were going to be connected. And again, while I've put this talk together, I said, well, for new hams, let me just go through the most common connectors you're going to run into. And just starting from the left, kind of going clockwise, BNCs, these are your quick connects, very common. Again, a lot of VHF marine radios may use these, but they're just twist locks. Again, very common. Also your SMA male and female connectors. I found these are often found in very thin wires. And again, just very, very, in your software-defined radio dongle, this is what you're probably going to find. And again, just get very, very common for some of these applications. And finally, all the way on the right, something that I haven't used yet, but the end female and male. From what I understand, they're much better at higher frequencies where the cables are lossier. I also think these connections are considered waterproof. So again, this is kind of the suite of connections that you may deal with. And again, just in thinking about these are represent some of the adapters you may have to purchase. The next thing, I just want to make sure everyone understands that I am about 24 miles away from the water tower that supports our repeaters. And again, very early on, I picked up a Bofang GT5R, and I wanted to be able to connect. And the rubber ducky antenna that I had would not even pick up any broadcasts from this group. And you can see just the line using Google Earth. I'm quite a ways away. So I ended up building a directional Yagi antenna using some instructions posted on Discord, just by wrapping fiberglass rods with aluminum tape and connecting it to my Bofang, and found that I was able to hit. And again, I can periodically raise it up and make a connection with the repeater and participate in some of the nets that both this club hosts and other clubs host around the area. I'm hoping to make this setup that, again, as you can see, it's very simple, but to waterproof this using something called, again, liquid tape that Michael put me onto, but hopefully to waterproof this setup as best I can and maybe get a couple of years out of it so that I can connect to it. And just know I've also got a fiberglass mask that I've been using for various testing purposes that has cam locks on it. And I believe I picked this up from, it's either MFJ or DX Engineering. I can't remember at the moment. So thinking about your equipment, new hands, you don't need a wall of old equipment to get on, again, the HF frequencies. It can be as simple looking as this. And I tried to clean off my desktop, but again, ideally you have a PC and ideally you have a power supply and a transceiver. And this may be it. This may be your entire shack. And just know that with all of the YouTube videos that I've watched, almost every background features a wall of transceivers, and I suspect half of them are not working. So just know, don't be intimidated by all that equipment. I mean, I thought surely something's wrong. You know, my shack doesn't look like, again, the NASA, command and control center. So very simple setup. Also, again, this is all I've run. I have a single RG8X wire that I've connected. Again, I ended up pulling through, I guess it's like RG58 or whatever the 75 ohm coax is that you use for like direct TV. Ended up using that to pull, again, my 50 ohm RG8X up into my attic. And I suspended it up as high as I could so that I could, again, store Christmas and Thanksgiving and children's things up in the attic without running into it. And you can see my SDR dongles right down there, and I can easily switch them out. So saying all that, that's my background. And again, that's my simple setup. So where do you start? Morse code. You want to get into Morse code. What do you do? So these are the 3 key resources that I have easily available. And again, I've made them desktop, desktop images so that I can quickly reference them. The amateur radio bands, gotta have it. This is a go-to reference. And again, you don't need to memorize these. Again, over time you will, but again, this kind of keeps you between the lanes and figure out where people are operating and generally operating within your license class. The other thing I have is, again, the courteous operator frequencies. Now, these aren't mandatory, but these are the frequencies that are used for various things, whether you're calling CQ. Again, these are the frequencies maybe where you may run into repeaters or other types of devices. But again, this is also part of my desktop. And finally, Q codes are, again, these ham codes. This is one of the things that intimidated me quite a bit whenever I was starting my Morse code journey, thinking I would need to know all of these codes in order to communicate with others. That these codes would be tossed around and maybe I wouldn't know what was being discussed, but that's not the case. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what's the case. And finally, kind of the alphabet and the phonetic lettering. This is something I refer to just, in a pinch, whenever you're in the middle of a conversation with someone. It's amazing how some of these things will just slip your mind. So where did I start? I started with an iPhone app called Morse Mania, Learn Morse Code. And again, I essentially spent a month playing this game, learning my letters and then my numbers and then essential punctuation. Now, notice, the key thing here is it's an arcade game. It is a registered arcade game. And that's, I think, one of the secrets to learning Morse code. Make it fun. And this makes it fun. And learning your letters and numbers. And again, it gives you feedback. And it's just kind of a non-intimidating way to do that. I'm sure that there are other ways, again, to learn letters, numbers, and punctuation. But again, this is what I did. For a month, I played this game religiously. As other people may play Candy Crush or like Angry Birds. So the next thing that I did was I ended up picking up, a key. I needed a key to, be able to practice signaling and sending out. So this is, what I recommend. You can begin doing this while you're learning your letters and numbers. For me, I think I picked one up kind of towards the end when I was working on punctuation. But with simple devices like this, the CW Morse serial adapter, your key, and again, a simple bit of software, again, Morse Keyer, again, you can turn your PC into a keying device. Please know, you can also use your transceiver to do this. Again, you can turn break-in off. You could also signal into a dummy load if you wanted to, if you didn't want to get on the air. But just know that there are a lot of, a lot of ways for you to begin practicing keying. Also know that there are a lot of keys to choose from, and really you can use whatever suits your style and your fancy, because this is a hobby. And we're doing this because, again, we love thinking about, again, the way things were done in the past, and it's really, there's no pressure to use any one way to send out. But again, I've found that some keys take a little more skill and a little more practice to get right, but all of them can be mastered and can be fun. And you can see at the top is, again, double paddle, iambic keyer. Again, there's a straight key. We have here what's called a bug, and it's, again, it's actually a mechanical way to automate sending some of the dits. I think the dials are manually handled, and this is something that Rebecca brought, if you'd like to look at after this talk. Again, really neat, and it looks like some kind of mechanical contraption from the Victorian era. So again, I do love just what they are. They're really neat. We also have different paddles. You've got, single paddle paddles. You've got double paddle paddles. In fact, you've got cheap little $20 things that are sold on Amazon, but all of them will work. When you're getting started, just find something to practice sending. And again, sending is probably one of the things that's most fun and one of the things that you pick up most quickly. Another tool that you can begin to use, again, and to begin to practice talking with people without getting on the air is something called the V-band connection. This is a little connector that you can buy. It's a USB paddle interface, and it's sold by Ham Radio Solutions. And there's even a website you can use to talk to other people without having to get on the air. It's just through the internet. There's usually people around, again, for you to talk to. I haven't used this much, early on when I was learning. I used it a little, but just wanted to let you know that it's out there. There are also solutions for use your iPhone. So just know there's an app called Marsit, and if, again, you use the V-band connector, the Ham Radio Solutions V-band connector, you have a paddle interface and you have an iPhone adapter. I mean, you can practice keying through your iPhone. So there are various ways, even if you haven't bought your transceiver yet, to be able to learn how to key. This is an example of a keyer that you can plug right into, and it just gives you a tone, nothing fancy. There are models that, again, are a little fancier. All of them are going to allow you to control the keying speed, whether it's a straight key or paddles. Some come as kits. Some of them are pre-assembled. Some of them will actually give you feedback on your keying. In other words, it'll decode your Morse code for you if you're getting it just right. And again, that's one of the things you can work towards is, again, clean feedback. And again, all the way to a really fancy kit like this Morsino. That another thing that Rebecca's brought, and again, I know she's used to train and practice. It's really fancy. It gives you feedback, and it does all sorts of other fancy things. But again, that's also sold as a kit. So lots of ways to, again, practice sending. One thing I can't stress enough to, again, continuing and being encouraged in this hobby is to join a club. Join a club with other people that are on your journey with you, as well as those that have, again, are well into their journey, maybe a couple of decades, and just want to talk about CW and talk about, the struggles they had and offer you words of encouragement. And again, for me, that's been the Hurst Amateur Radio Club. Love this club. And again, can't say thank you enough to, again, all the encouragement that just being a member of this club has brought. But one thing I want to share with you is also a big thank you from my wife. To just know that, again, you're helping to carry the talk, again, burden, again, for she and I, when I get home, instead of trying to talk to her about everything from science fiction to HF propagation to build projects. Again, we can immediately begin talking about things she's interested in. So thank you, Hurst Club, for, again, being my go-to group of people to, again, discuss technology in all of its forms. Another excellent club that I joined was the Long Island CW Club. And again, this club is really good. They're very supportive. There are a lot of members. I ended up joining as a lifetime member, but there are other memberships. But they've got classes around the clock, and you can see there's a schedule here of all of the classes that are available. And I mean, they take students from beginners all the way to advanced, and they've got a lot of tips. And in one of the Zoom meetings I attended, they're the ones that gave me the recommendation for using Quakehold, which is excellent, by the way. I don't know how this magical stuff works, but it sticks when you want it. When you don't, it doesn't stick. It's amazing. It's almost like you use your mind to control its stickiness. But it's great for holding keys in place, again, especially being new. And again, maybe I'm hitting the paddles or the straight key a little too aggressively. I haven't quite controlled my fist yet. So again, Quakehold is wonderful. There's another group that, again, I haven't really become a part of. I've read quite a bit of them. It's a CW Operators Club. I know, Sam and Steve online are members of this club. And again, because they've advanced quite a bit, but to be official members and not just students, you've got to be very proficient. And again, Steve, this is something that I know, I'm looking towards, and others like Rebecca are looking towards, as something to attain. So again, just wanted to mention that really good club. So in thinking about becoming a CW operator, one of the lessons I learned from the Long Island Club is something that I want to share with you that's key. That was the first step in helping me get on the air. And that is the beginning of the exchange is almost always scripted. I mean, there's a script. There are ditches that if you stay between, you're going to be fine. And if you initially train to, again, get off this initial exchange and learn to gracefully get off the, the off ramp, you're going to be fine. I know whenever you're online and again, you're wanting to rag chew, you're calling CQ, the phone conversations and other conversations can get pretty off the rails. But with Morse code, unless you choose to continue rag chewing, again, and as long as you exchange key information, you can hop off. And that's a great exchange. Everybody leaves happy. 73 is all around. And in saying that and looking at the script that I practice with the Long Island CW Club, you can see it'll start with something as simple as someone calling CQ. When someone's calling CQ, that's a great opportunity to listen once, twice, 3 times to their call sign, make sure you get it right. And then to respond, at first, you simply give them your call sign. Hey, I'm AI 5PM. Can you hear me? And if they hear you, they're going to say, hi, I can hear you. Again, my RST, my readability, signal strength, and tone, your RST is this. You are 599. You're coming in clear. Your QTH or your location, and again, TX, Texas, and my name is Chris. And then they'll say the same, or you'll say the same thing back to them after you say, give your call sign. And once you exchange that key information, really all you're on the hook to do is say, thank you, 73, have a great day, and you're off, if that's all you want to do. So knowing that key information is this, is all that needs to be exchanged, you can focus in on what you need for that. And that's simply know your call sign, okay? Again, and you're going to, as you practice sending, you're going to learn your call sign. It's going to become comfortable hearing it, become comfortable with the term QRL, or is anybody listening? Is anybody listening? And again, that's how we clear frequencies in Morse code. So QRL, and then the question mark. Again, question mark and comma are often used. BT is simply a pause, and it's the same thing as equal. But again, the sound of BT, and again, you can give it multiple times if you're having trouble thinking of what you're going to say. And again, BK is break, or K is okay, and Roger, RR. These are ways that you acknowledge that you're either BK, you're handing off the conversation to the other person, or in the case of K or RR, you're like, okay, yep, I'm either picking up the conversation, BK, or RR, or you can have both, Roger, and BK, thank you for handing the ball back to me, and you begin speaking. And again, 599, 559, it's good to, again, hear these numbers and these sounds and become comfortable hearing them, because if maybe you lost track of where you are in the dits and das and you hear that, you can immediately catch up in the script as to where you are. DE, this is. So again, I can say, hello, your call sign, DE, this is AI 5PM. So this is. And that was something that I know David told me about, again, whenever I first started thinking about learning Morse code. What is DE? 73 just means, again, thank you. It was great talking to you. Goodbye. And SK, that's ending the conversation, and it sounds like da 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 da. It's just, again, goodbye to everyone. So again, with just knowing these few bits of, again, letters and numbers and punctuation, you can get through the script. So hopefully it's not that intimidating. So knowing that, what is the most difficult part of Morse code? Well, it's a rhetorical question. It's receiving, comprehending that information that's coming your way. And I can tell you that, whenever it's coming, the faster and you're working in an area and a speed that you're not comfortable with, it can become disorienting at times, especially if you've had a busy day, maybe you've got chores to do, maybe, there's something else in your life you're preparing for. But if you're distracted, it can be a challenge to comprehend. And it really, especially in these early stages of learning Morse code, it takes every bit of your mental strength. And to be honest, this is where, again, in comprehension, where I've spent over 75% of my time. It's not sending. I've, in fact, very rarely practice sending, which I probably should do more of, but it's just listening and trying to understand the code and slowly increasing the speed. And I've been doing that almost exclusively using Morse Code Ninja. And again, I can't recommend it enough. Morse Code Ninja helps you train by using what's called the Farnsworth technique, which is, again, transmitting letters, again, the individual dits and das of each individual letter or number very quickly, but pausing between each for varying lengths of time. And you can start with as much as 8 times character spacing between each of the letters. So again, for A, it'll be like da-da, and then there'll just be a pause, give your mind time to catch up, and then you'll get another one and another one. And as humans, we want to feel progress. We want some metric to know that we're getting somewhere. And look, heaven knows that the progress, if you were to plot the progress of, again, learning Morse code, I've learned this very early, it looks like something like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones. I mean, you're up and down and you're everywhere. You've got good days and bad days. So to help kind of keep your eye on the ball that you are making progress and to not give up, using something like Morse Code Ninja will help track, again, the spacing between letters, and again, eventually the spacing between words, and help you track your progress, knowing that, and helping you see through all of that noise that's being generated as you move forward. And again, all Morse Code Ninja does is, again, you put in what you want to hear, whether it's call signs, letters, numbers, sentences, and it takes you to the appropriate YouTube page, and it begins sending it your way. So there are 2 things that I primarily do. So this is me, again, just on an elliptical, and this is the time whenever, of course, I can't write anything down, is when I listen to words and I listen to sentences, and I try and just comprehend them by ear. And again, over time, I've just slowly increased the speed, trying to focus on getting about 70% right. And again, that allows your mind to constantly be stressed and just listening to them. And over time, I've closed the gap between letters for words. And now, again, I have spacing between words, and I'm trying to close that gap so that I can begin to put words together more quickly. At home, you can see these sheets. These are all call signs. And what I do at home, since I have a pen and paper, and because, again, you're going to want to write call signs down, is I just listen to, again, call signs and trying to hear them and just be able to write them down without error. And I'm constantly keeping myself at about 70%, being 70% successful and about 30% wrong, so that I keep the stress on my brain. The other tools that I've used and I periodically use is the QSO trainer. This is a great tool because you can put in your call sign and you can put in your name. And what it'll do is it'll generate snippets of the script for you to listen to. So it's only going to generate sentences that are appropriate for, again, for the exchanges that you're probably going to have. And you can see here, just looking a little closer in this case, it's like, someone's calling me, hey, Chris, this is RQ QOM, the weather's light snow, my transceiver is Kenwood, whatever. Again, I'm running 700 watts and the antenna is an attic random wire. My age is 48. How copy, okay? So again, it generates common abbreviations and common Q codes and things that you're often going to see. So again, that's primarily how I'm training. Another way I've been training is by recording online QSOs. And you can see here, you can do that in a variety of ways. You can use a transceiver to record those QSOs, and that's perfectly fine. There's usually some quick button on most transceivers to begin recording one. Again, that's probably something you can find no matter whether you use like a Yaesu here or some other brand. But personally, if I'm going to record and want to listen to it back, especially if it's very fast code, I'll use something else. Now, you may use your PC if your transceiver is connected to it, a little recording device. I've got headphones and I'll just stick it in my ear. You can use your iPhone. You can just put it down, or some other device. But those devices have an advantage because you can usually slow them down if the code's coming in too fast. So anyway, it's okay to record things, to slow them down. And one thing that's worth mentioning, again, for new hams is that, again, we've been spending most of our time on 20 meters. That seems to be kind of the go all around most successful band over this summer, especially in propagation. But 14.050 to 14.060 is generally where I find the conversations that are at a speed I can comprehend. And it's kind of that slower CW speed area. All right, so got all that. I've been training and practicing. I haven't been on the air yet. What do I do now? And this is how I got online. Again, this is how I dipped my toe into the pond. First thing I discovered was the International Beacon Network, just to try and understand propagation. Now, these stations you see here are sending signals out that I could pick up in Morse code to figure out how far I might be heard. But here's the real doozy, the reverse beacon network. You send signals out, and again, there are stations that pick you up and report online how, if you're being heard and how well you're being heard. And this was the first time I had to actually broadcast CW out to be heard. And again, the first thing I ever said online in Morse code was QRL, clearing the frequency. And I'm telling you, I think my hand was shaking just clearing a frequency, making sure I wasn't interrupting someone. So again, the fear of being online was real. And again, this is me dipping into the water. And slowly over time, I became comfortable with just clearing a frequency. Now, the specific language that, again, the reverse beacon network is going to pick up on is either test or CQ, your call sign, repeat it to make sure it's heard. And again, this can be typically programmed into your transceiver to make sure it's being sent cleanly. So QRL, I would do manually. This I would send in an automated fashion. But again, that was my first time online. The next time I made contact with someone was right ahead of the summer ARRL field day. And I was determined that, again, I was not going to make my first contact, with the club's call sign. I wanted it to be me reaching out to someone calling CQ. And I knew that Steve, I know you're online, Steve was going to say, hey, Chris, why don't you get online? Why don't you try and make a contact? And I thought, okay. So again, I've got to do this. I've got to be able to go into the field day saying, I've made first contact with someone. And I did. But this is what I did, is I really wanted it to be memorable. I wanted to make sure that it was someone that may be friendly. And there are ways you can get hints at that. Is I heard someone calling CQ, again, and I looked them up on the QRZ website. I saw that they did share paper QSL cards. That's always a good sign if someone's going to be very open and patient with you. And I just went in, and I had the script in front of me. I really didn't deviate from it. I gave him, again, my model number. I gave him my name, my RST report, my state. And I ended up getting off of the train after, again, giving a lot of that key information. And I can tell you that there were at least 2 periods within him talking about, it's great to talk to you, or maybe about his equipment, that I completely spaced out and I had an out-of-body experience. I didn't know what was being said. I didn't even record this conversation. Shame on me to go back and look. But again, it's going to be lost to the sands of time. But just know that, it's important that you're ready, you're comfortable to a degree before you get online. But it's okay if all of a sudden you completely lose track of where you are. Again, my hands were sweating, but again, I did it. And that first step is the most important one. And he ended up being a very kind person. And again, I got not 1, but 2 QSL cards from him. And he ended up being a retired submarine engineer. And since then, I've gotten several more QSL cards, and here are just a few. And it's one of the things I love about the hobby. And again, that motivates me to continue on this journey. And that's important. Let's talk about motivation. You've got to set goals and again, be able to look forward to things. One of the most eye-opening and exciting things that I did with this club was participate in the field day. And you can see we had a ball setting up antennas, which is one of the things I love to do. Again, just seeing everyone coming together, both just the chit-chatting, but just again, working again with Steve very closely. And you can see there's Rebecca, again, logging for Steve, but I know, thank you, Steve, for taking a little time to, again, help us again understand what was going on, talk about just the chaos that we were seeing, but it was exciting. It was exciting to see that there are so many CW operators out there. It was overwhelming. I mean, I've never seen so many CW operators ever, and it's great to see the bands alive, and this hobby is still strong. But I had an epiphany whenever I discovered Parks on the Air. And if you like to get out of your shack, but to still operate, this seems to be the thing. And I've had several discussions with Sam. Again, I've seen lots of videos online of what it can be. And I said, well, I've got to learn more about this. And you can see you can be in some of the most beautiful places in the United States and the world, and you can participate by setting up simple rigs. And again, on the website, people announce whenever they're activating, or again, they're in a park broadcasting, and you can find them. So the difficulty that comes sometimes with interpreting someone's call sign, or again, it's just information, that's eliminated. These exchanges follow a very specific format that you see up here. Very, very quick and concise. Not, again, I know that, again, some of the people that are more advanced in CW say that eventually you need to begin having more free-form conversations, but I can tell you that the big benefit of doing this, aside from all of the little rewards and certificates that the website generates, as you have more and more contact, which, by the way, even as an adult, who doesn't like to get awards? I mean, even if it's just like a white participation ribbon. But what's really good about this is that on any day you can see people activating in parks, and with a simple exchange, you can continue to suppress that fear of getting online. And that's why it's so important. And that's why I love this platform. And again, why I continue to go back to it is that eventually I would like to be an activator. This is something I'm working towards, and again, but again, for fear suppression, it's just the right thing. And you can see very simply here, that again, it's just a very simple exchange. You give your information, your call sign information. Again, you give the RST, you give your location, and then you hand it back off. So very simple exchange. So what I'd like to do is very quickly, I'd like to have you hear a POTA exchange, and again, just talk you through it. So let's see if this works. Again, hopefully, anyone listening in online will be able to hear this. So this is someone calling CQ working a POTA station. So let's know. Propagation's been lovely this summer, but listen, he's going to do it again. Okay, so as you heard, again, propagation has been a challenge this summer. We know that, again, there's been so many coronal mass ejection. I mean, everything has been tough to hear, but you can hear. It feels like you're riding up and down the waves, again, but that's okay. Don't get discouraged. But you could hear that. That's why I listened to this CQ call twice, because the second time he called CQ and the second time he gave his call sign, I could clearly hear WT50. Okay, I'm on the right frequency. This is the person that I'm intending to talk to. So again, let's listen to, again, my response. Again, I'm calling out to this person saying, hey, I exist. I want to communicate. Listen. Da-da-da-da-da, question mark. Okay, so what you heard there was me giving my call sign. You heard that beep. Again, I have my call sign programmed into my transceiver. So I'm just pressing a button. And what you heard was he gave AI and then did it, did it, question mark. I didn't get it all. Can you give it again? And this can happen 3 or 4 times if propagation is poor, but that's okay. Just again, that's why recognizing the question mark is so important. So again, okay, so he's got it. You heard the beginning, which is the tail end of this recording. But again, we're moving forward now. He's got it. And what's good is I made sure I heard my call sign very clearly. That way it's going to be logged and he knows who he's talking to. Okay, so this is his exchange back to me. So let's listen in. As you can hear, that's why you give things again twice, because we're riding those waves. And again, he says, thank you. And like, what? Good evening. It's very, very difficult to pick up. And you heard the beginning of, again, the RST report. And then when he does it again, it's 55N or 559. And then you can hear clearly California and brick. That's handing off the ball saying, here you go, AI5PN, back to you. And this is my response. So you can see I'm responding back at a slower speed. That's okay. You don't have to match the faster speed. Again, I'm just signaling back, I think at about 15 words per minute, effective speed back to this person. And again, this is the final exchange. And again, back to me. And again, that's it. The dit, I'm out. And again, I gave him a dit back. But again, one of the things you might not have picked up on, he said, back to you. Okay, or no, I'm picking up the ball back. Roger, thank you. And he started to, key out 73, but he ended up keying in a Z. He just said, that's okay. It's just, I'm just going to keep on 73. Just pause, 73. And it's okay to make mistakes. No big deal. So you can see that, and that was the entire exchange. So you can see that, again, there are ways to take baby steps and to begin to get out there on the air. So just, looking ahead, you can see that, there are lots of things to look forward to and to continue to push you to get better. I stumbled upon this 13 colonies event recently, and I'm looking forward in the future. I ended up collecting 4 QSL cards from this, but I'd like all 13 in the future. Jamboree on the Air is coming up, and I would love to be able to talk to scouts wanting to learn more about CW. That'll be interesting. There are contests that you can look up on the ARL website. There's, again, Run for the Bacon that Rebecca talked about. This is a great thing, again, that's, again, happens every month and sometimes more frequently. But again, these are slower speed operators. And again, everyone's very, very patient. I am very excited about Winter Field Day to the point where I've scouted things out. And even on Discord, we're having conversations, just again, talking about all of the various ways we might set things up, especially if we have a freeze like we did a couple of years ago and we get down to 0 degrees. But again, it's just fun, working together to talk about these things. I've also got a QRP Labs QMX transceiver that I just received, along with this equipment I'm using to build a portable antenna. But you can see with very, very little equipment, you can transmit on CW and get out there, do things like POTA, or just be out, out in the world transmitting. And you can see here, and I'll pass this around, but with a setup as simple as this, this is all you need. An in-fed half-wave antenna, and you're good to go. In fact, this piece of equipment, this QMX transceiver by QRP Labs, this one in particular runs on 12 volts, but you can actually get one that runs on 9 volts, and you can just hook up 9-volt batteries, and each one will give you a couple of hours. So I'm going to pass this around just for you to look at really quickly, and just take a look. There you go. But just a few closing thoughts, and just to close things down. And I can see this as a journey. And please know that, when Steve approached me to give this talk, I felt like I was climbing Everest. And a good analogy is climbing Everest, and I'm maybe at the first base camp, maybe a day's hike up. And there's a news team there saying, well, tell me about your experience on Everest. How was it being? I've got several more, reaches to go. I can only tell you, so far a little bit about where I've been and where I'm going. But looking up, I can see that it's a journey. So again, hopefully, this just what I've talked to you about and just getting started gives you a little encouragement to move forward. Set goals. You need a purpose just to continue to push yourself and to progress. It's going to feel erratic. That's okay. There's a lot of guidance out there that tells you to think of, the keying as dits and das. I mean, not to think of it as dits and das, but as notes. But I can tell you that that's not something consciously that you can do. It's, using the Farnsworth method and slowly increasing your speed, you're going to find that that's going to come kind of organically. But again, learning your letters and numbers and punctuation at that higher frequency, but again, slowly closing the gap between them. Training consistency. One thing that I've tried to commit myself to doing, and I've been mostly successful, is every day, even if it's just 5 minutes, to do some training, to listen, to Morse code in some way, shape, or fashion, and to keep my brain in the game. Getting on the air is important. You're going to hear that guidance a lot, but get on the air whenever you're ready. I'm telling you, the first time you're online, if you're anything like me and a little nervous, you may have an out-of-body experience. So some of which you may do just may come as a reflex and not be actively done. And again, photopropagation has been frustrating, but that's okay. We're all in the same boat. Also, to all new hands, is that there are a lot of things that you can build and a lot of things that you can buy, and it's okay to do both. Just a lot of the guidance out there that you get is to build everything, but it's okay to buy a few things too, just so that you're up and running and that you can begin enjoying the hobby. But I can tell you that the number one thing that stops everyone from starting this journey and continuing it is getting on the air. Once you're on the air, it's like a snowball rolling down the hill. It's like you see that you can be in it for the long haul and it's okay. But until you get on the air, it can be frustrating. Learning your letters and numbers, just takes time. But once you're on the air and you start getting feedback, it just feels like you're in some kind of secret club, or again, talking to someone, under the sheets with the flashlights. Like, you hear me, I hear you. This is great. So again, it's just, a community of great people just enjoying this wonderful hobby, both ham and Morse code. And just know this is the best way to sum it up. And I look at this sometimes, it's like, Chris, get some perspective. We're only here for a little while. And again, get over your fear, just step out there, and it's a blast. So again, thank you very much for listening. Any questions, thoughts, comments from the team? All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Look forward next summer. I really look forward as a CW Ops member to sponsoring you sometime next summer. And I have no doubt you'll be doing field day at 20 words a minute. And you'll join us, B5XS, our dear departed friend Jim Davis was a member of CW Academy. He kind of got me thinking about this. And of course, Sam and M5Men, I give all the credit to getting me revitalized. But why is that important for field day? Because it's so much easier to make a contact on CW on field day than it is on phone. And it's faster. And we're, not that we're trying to run the score up, but we made 38 contacts in a few hours with Chris and Rebecca and I. A couple of other comments. There's a lot of training material you talked about, Chris, and it's overwhelming, I think, to a lot of people. But CW Academy has some MP3s, which I will provide. They're not copyrighted. You could post on the website 5, 10, 15 words, but people could just hear some contacts and give it a shot. There is a de facto informal group within the club of CW operators, which of course includes you and Rebecca, Sam, and myself, if anybody wants to join us. And guys, I can't say that CW is for everybody, but what's so cool about your talk, Chris, is you didn't just talk about CW. You described an incredible trip of starting out in the hobby, which everybody who gets his new license ought to hear that. the CVE group. Hope you consider doing that, because how you approached this and got on the air in a half a year is pretty phenomenal. A couple of more comments. I was in Boise, Idaho last week. I had a radio that was battery powered, plugged it in on CW, and it's just so incredible to get on and talk to somebody 800, 1,000 miles away easily with QRP. It was great trying to work you and Rebecca. Rebecca and I did communicate. And Rebecca sounds pretty good with the bug right now. I have to say that. She's already got her bug, and she was using that. I could copy her fine. Last comment, you keep talking about the fear of getting on the air. That is absolutely so true. And even after a few years in this hobby, I still get on. I'm supposed to be able to do 25 words a minute comfortably. I kind of can. Then I get somebody like K6RB doing 35 words a minute. You kind of, oh, what's he going to think of me if I can't keep up with him? Get on, be fearless. You don't have to copy everything. But Chris, that was a great talk. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that you did this.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for volunteering me.
Okay.